What up, peeps? So we're learning about summarizing. So to show you as an example, this is chapter 3 of The Best Book Ever, aka Anne of Green Gables. And I copied and pasted it into a doc. It's 6 pages, just to give you an idea of what a chapter might look like lengthwise. And so what I'm going to do is, I've already read this chapter, and you obviously will have also read a chapter before you're going about summarizing it. And so what I'm going to do is kind of go through and highlight some of the things that I feel like are noteworthy, that might be important to summarize. And remember, summaries are about finding what's most important. So I want to highlight, for example, things like names of major characters who show up in this chapter, because I want to make sure I introduce them. I also I want to make sure that I'm like capturing anything that is like really important to the action of the story, so that I don't miss anything. So I see it looks like Marilla is amazed because she was expecting a boy to come home with her brother Matthew, and instead he brought a girl. So I have, she stopped short in amazement and said, "Where is the boy?" I feel like that's a pretty key moment in the paragraph. And then let's see, I'm going to keep going through, and it sounds like Marilla's pretty insistent that there was an error. And then, well, this is a pretty piece of business, so Marilla's kind of feeling some kind of way about the whole situation. And then I see, oh goodness, during this dialogue, the child remains silent. So Anne is like realizing what's happened. And I see, "If you don't want me," she cried, "you don't want me because I'm a boy. Nobody ever did want me." I feel like that's an important part where she's like realizing, oh goodness. So I want to make sure I have that. And then it says she burst into tears. And then Marilla's like not that understanding. I noticed that as I'm reading. And it sounds like I see that in this part where Marilla and Anne are talking, Anne is being really dramatic and Marilla's like not really having it. So I feel like this is important because it's showing how Marilla and Anne first kind of meet each other. Like Anne's asking Marilla to call her a different name and saying she's like deeply depressed and despairing about the whole situation. So I don't want to highlight all of this because that'd be a lot. So I'm going to comment and I'm going to say, make sure to mention that Marilla gets to see how imaginative and dramatic Anne can be. Because I feel like that's an important part of Anne's character, and the fact that Marilla's being introduced to that in this chapter is worthy of including in the summary. And then let's see, this is still them talking, and let's see if I keep going. She says, "We want a boy to help Matthew on the farm. A girl will be of no use to us." That seems like kind of important, that she's sort of stubbornly saying like, we don't need a girl here. And then if I keep going, Anne's describing what it's like to be in the depths of despair. That's funny and interesting, but I don't know if it's like summary worthy. And then I see Marilla found a room for Anne. So let's see. So she put her in the gable chamber. And this is all just them kind of having conversations, and Anne is really sad. And then I keep going. So see, I'm not like rereading the whole chapter, but I'm kind of skimming through looking for the things that are important. And then good night, Marilla says awkwardly, and Anne's sad. "How can you call it a good night when it's the very worst night I've ever had?" So there's more drama. And then Marilla goes back downstairs, and she says they have to, okay, so she says this girl will have to be sent back to the asylum. So that's Marilla saying that. That's kind of important. But then Matthew, who's like really quiet, we learned that in chapter 1, it looks like Matthew is kind of like interested in keeping her. So I feel like that's a really important detail to include, that he's sort of pushing back a little bit. And then Matthew's still kind of pushing back for the rest of it, and then I see poor Anne cried herself to sleep. So, okay, now I've highlighted a bunch of the important things that happen, and the next step is to try and put this together, making sure I move chronologically from the beginning of the chapter to the end to put it into my own words and explain the key things that happen. So hopefully this helps give you an idea of how summary might work. If you can't highlight because you're on an actual book, you can always use Post-its, or you can underline if it's your book. But it's a good way to kind of go through and look for the most important points so that you can summarize well.